everyone. Welcome to the Real Estate Speedcast. This is episode 8, coming to you with another announcement. I'm here with Juan Castro. We're both Greater Orlando Realtors, and I have a question for Juan, and he's going to make the announcement. Who is Mr.
Yes.
Cooper, and what's going on?
All right. So the latest news that happened about 4 or 5 days ago was that Rocket has also decided not just to purchase Redfin, but also Mr. Cooper. Now, Mr. Cooper is primarily a loan servicer.
What does that mean for people that don't know what a loan
Yeah.
service is?
Yeah. So they do originate mortgages, but their primary goal and function is to service the loan. So, for example, let's say you get a loan from a mortgage broker, it closes 2 or 3 months later, you get a letter saying the servicing of the loan has been moved to a loan servicer. Here's who they are, here's their phone number. They'll send you the new coupon book or the website, and you go from there. That is what Mr. Cooper's super function is
So,
to
Mr.
service the
Cooper,
loan.
if I understand it correctly, they basically purchase then these mortgages. And it's
Well,
just
they don't purchase the mortgages. They do the loan servicing for the investors that own the mortgages.
got you.
And that could be an assortment of investors on one mortgage, right?
Right.
Because they package the mortgages and they sell them on the secondary market. So, what is Mr. Cooper's function? To get the payments from the people that have the mortgages and then disperse them to the investors.
Yeah. Now I know when I have, well, buyers or sellers, whatever, when I get my final Alta before closing, a lot of that mortgage payoff is going to Mr. Cooper. I just had one just 2 days ago. I got the Alta and I'm like, okay, Mr. Cooper, who is he?
Yep, yep. They're the loan servicer, so they handle that function. The key is you have to imagine they make a little bit of profit every month the loan is serviced. And most mortgages are what? 15, 20, 30-year mortgages.
I would say most are probably 30.
Unless they refinance or they sell and do another purchase. But a lot of times on a refinance, what do the lenders do now? The servicers, they'll go back and say, hey, do you want to redraft your mortgage and do a new loan? And we'll do it for you. And they try to keep it in-house. So imagine in your mind, Rocket is a huge originator.
Right.
So you got a huge originator that also services mortgages, but not their primary function. There's an assortment of functions. So you have Rocket, huge originator. You have Redfin. We're the solution on the real estate front.
Right.
And then you have now Mr. Cooper, who's the servicer. So picture in your mind a big circle. So what is Rocket building? End-to-end solution.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. All for
know,
the consumer.
yeah, and provide a high level of service.
Right.
Hopefully, efficiency down the line will compress and build, lower fees because you can keep more stuff inside the circle.
Right. Right.
So, I picture things like Juan Castro when he's 22 years old and buys his first house, has a positive experience with Redfin, gets referred to Rocket. Rocket does the mortgage, has a positive experience at Rocket. Now Mr. Cooper services the loan for the next 7 years. I sell my house. If my experiences are positive, I'm treated fairly, I'm inside the ecosystem. Who's the first person I call? I call Redfin to sell my house.
Mhm.
They refer me back to Rocket. Rocket handles my financing for my new purchase. So I
Keep
picture,
going, right?
I
Now,
picture people going,
when we first announced Rocket, you said that you I want to say you manifested it, right? Like
well,
you're
I had hoped
I
because
say it's manifestation. Did you see Mr. Cooper coming on board? And do you see anything else for the future of Rocket Mortgage acquiring other things? Or do you not want to take a guess at these things?
I don't, I mean, Mr. Cooper was a surprise to me
Yeah,
because they're a pretty big entity.
right.
They service something like 10, 11 million customers.
And Rocket services 30 million. Did I read that correctly or did I
I,
read that
you
reverse?
know, I couldn't even say because with all the different stuff going on, my numbers in my head
Yeah, yeah, I knew there
are
was, it
going
was like
all over
10
the
and 30
place.
and I wasn't sure which one was which, but those numbers are, but combined numbers and
Oh,
the customers that from Redfin that will now most likely use Rocket, right? If the Rocket loan officer does the right thing. I mean, that's
yeah.
huge.
Yeah, I think of it as a circle. I mean, we're going
Yeah.
to be able to keep people inside the circle, and it's not going to be because we're forcing them, it's because we're going to have so much efficiency and
Mhm.
it's going to be cost effective that it's probably not going to make sense for them to go outside the circle.
Right. The service is where it's at. So we provide good service. We know that Rocket provides good service. Mr. Cooper's doing something right because they have a lot, they service a lot of loans. So they're doing something right also. So three entities that are doing something right coming together,
And
which
you've
we
got to
probably
think
won't
of,
have a lot of dealings with Mr. Cooper, right? But
yeah, they're the servicers, so they'll be
yeah,
on all the payoffs and things like that.
right.
But I envision a lot of cross traffic.
Hmm.
A lot of people not knowing what they want to do. Do I sell? Do I refinance? But we're going to be able to give them the answers that they need.
Right,
And
right.
you think of giving someone the honest answer
Hmm.
instead of the selfish answer.
Right. And with Rocket doing this, Redfin, Mr. Cooper, when they when they acquire Redfin, they're also acquiring companies that Redfin owns.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so they'll have a title company.
Yes. And Rocket has their own title company now.
Okay, I didn't know
However,
that.
its primary function is refinances.
Okay,
Because as you know, on a purchase, what happens normally, not all the time, but normally the seller selects a title company.
right.
So, and if it's not all the time, but normally, so with that, you can't even pick. But Rocket does a lot of function with title on the refinance side,
Okay.
but they don't have it on the purchase or sales side like we do. And they're two different animals.
Right, right. I can imagine that being completely
They're built
different.
very different. So
Yeah,
we're going to give them resources for that. Bay Equity is getting assimilated into Rocket.
right.
So the loan
Bond
officers
lender,
will
yeah.
go in there. So, and they're going to get a higher level of tools and technology as well, just like we are. And then we got to think of all the AI machine learning that's going to go on. That's just going to tighten up the string, right? So instead of it being a mile long to go from one end to the other, I envision that rope is going to become maybe a quarter of a mile instead of a mile. So
Right,
the pressure for a customer from one end to the other is going to feel a lot less, a
right.
lot
Now, like we
softer.
can, which we kind of we do now, but we can really handle anything, different loan products, um,
Yeah.
to
I mean,
really
yeah, imagine the loan products. I mean, we're going to have products probably for 95% of the people in the
yeah.
United States. I mean,
Mhm.
and they're going to be good products. They're going to be competitive products because
Right.
you don't get that large if you're not competitive and if you're not
Yeah.
providing a high level of service. Will everyone be satisfied? No,
No, not in anything, right?
no. But probably 95% of people will be satisfied. It will all be acceptable. It'll be a huge
I'm
positive.
excited. I'm excited about all this.
No, I've always had a hope that if Redfin ever got acquired, it would be Rocket.
Yeah.
It was probably 4 years ago. And here we are.
Told you, you
And
manifested it. You
and
made
the
this all happen.
surprise to me is Mr. Cooper because what does that do? To me, that speeds up the process.
Right. So
So
now
imagine by
it's
the end
almost
of
like Rocket can
2025,
service their own loans, right? I mean,
yeah, but
essentially.
by
It's
the end of
the same.
2025, we will be one entity
Hmm.
with the same vision
Right.
and all of the best of every single company or segment of the company will be
Mhm.
able to share with each other. And I imagine a lot of cleanup, and it's going to be pretty attractive,
Yeah, I
at
agree.
least for people like us. It's going to be
Yeah,
super
yeah.
attractive.
I mean, I love
Now,
it.
some of my friends in the industry, they're a little nervous.
Other realtors or loan officers or both.
Realtors, a little bit of the loan officers are a little nervous.
Right.
They still can write under Rocket, as you know.
Of course. Yeah.
But but they're concerned about us building relationships with people on the inside instead of having to have somebody on the outside, which
Right.
I totally understand. If you go to company functions and you're surrounded by people, they become your friends and your counterparts and your
Yeah.
colleagues, naturally you're going to want to do it that way.
But other realtors, okay, so guess what? Apply for Redfin.
Yeah, yeah, you either get inside the circle or
Right.
you have to become more efficient. You
Yeah,
have to provide a higher level of service,
which we
you
do.
know, and some of them can do it, but we know what our world is like,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate. But I think the way the marketplace is right now, some people unfortunately will not make it. It doesn't mean they're not good, just
Right.
means
And it
that
doesn't have
they're,
any, this
yeah,
doesn't have anything to do with this acquisition, right? But it has slowed down a bit.
yeah. And there's natural pressure, competitive pressure, you
Yeah.
know. And when someone like Nancy walks in the room and says, I have sold over 150 houses, in the last 3 or 4 years, and then somebody walks in and says, I've sold two, I'd like to practice on yours.
Right. Right.
What is the seller's response going to be?
Yeah.
So there's some questions sellers and buyers should always be asking. How many homes have you sold? What is your sale to list price? What is your average days on market? Just kind of depends on what side you're
We
on, the buyer
offer all
seller
that,
side.
right? Like I print that out, you do the same. Here's my stats. They don't lie. The data does not lie.
They don't lie. They,
Yeah. The
they
numbers are
don't lie.
there, you know? You
They
can
don't lie.
uh,
Sometimes our stats are even better, but we can't get them all in there because you sell
yeah,
a new construction and you forget to put it in the MLS to track it,
right,
and it
right,
doesn't show up. But 99% of that is super accurate, probably as accurate as anything could ever be.
right, right.
You know, but we think it's a super exciting time for us.
Mm-hmm.
I
I guess
feel
we'll
like I'm at
learn
the
more
forefront.
as the days and weeks and months go on.
Yeah,
We just entered second quarter, so this could happen third or fourth.
third or fourth quarter probably.
Yeah,
So by the end of 2025, we'll be one group, going one direction,
yeah,
which we've always kind of traveled the same way, just different paths, different lanes. Now we're all going to be riding in the same bus,
right, right.
which I think is super
I think
powerful.
we're gonna be riding on the same rocket. I don't
Oh
know
my
about the bus,
gosh.
but
Yeah. I
we're gonna take the
picture like a
rocket.
little Monopoly, like a Monopoly hat guy,
Yeah, yeah.
with a squirrel behind him and
Hang
riding on a
on.
rocket.
Yep, love it.
So maybe we'll create that and post that little image later. But yeah, guys, that is the latest news. I don't know what the next surprise will be in the next 3 or 4 weeks.
I know. I feel like every day I wake up, there's a new surprise.
And you know what? Every time we get a surprise lately, it's a good one.
Yeah, yeah. It's like
It's a good
morning
one.
every day. I'm like, okay, what else are we gonna throw at us?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So
Santa
we'll
came
just
again.
we'll just wait for them to tell us the next one.
Yeah,
And but otherwise, we'll come up with some good topics for the next one as
yeah.
well.
And I just want to touch on something really quick. I said
Yeah.
that the market is slow. It's it's slower than it was, I think, last year at this time, but year over year, I'm still selling the same amount of homes. And I'm sure you are too. So it's not because people are asking me because I do post videos on
Yeah.
like TikToks and Facebook and
Yeah.
Twitter, and people will comment that the market is crashing. I just want to touch on that the market, in my opinion, is certainly not crashing.
No, no, it's not crashing. If you look at the statistics, there's quite a lot of the market right now. People that live in their homes
Hmm.
that have very low mortgages or have no mortgage
Right.
or super low interest rates. So, they're not going to get foreclosed on. They're not going to lose their house.
Right. So
No.
it's not 2008. We're not talking that. We're talking there's just to touch on this and maybe we go into this next week, but there is some uncertainty, right? Tariffs, this, that. People are just waiting. I don't, it's
Yeah.
gonna crash. Like there's some people have to move because there's always a reason that you have to
Yes.
move. I forget what all the D's are, death, divorce, something, but there's always stuff
Yes.
that makes you have to move.
Yes. Yes. But if you don't have to move, you're probably electing not to move right
Right,
now.
right.
So inventory, even though it's gone up a little bit, it's still pretty low.
Mm-hmm.
The buyer pool is still pretty small,
Right,
but that's sensitivity to price.
exactly. So
And the
rates are
price
coming
is
down,
either the
but
home
rates
price.
can go. But that's like a whole nother topic, right? Like where are rates going to go? We don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. We could just sit here and talk about it all day. But once there's more confidence in what's going on, we should see some positive changes.
Yeah, and I think people should be cognizant of when you see price reductions,
Hmm.
it doesn't mean that the market's going down.
No,
It could mean, and more than likely, what it means is that most sellers are overpricing because they don't understand that the market's not really moved very much
right.
since the
They want
summer of
it. Yeah.
2022.
Yep.
Yeah. They think, wow, it's been 2.5 years. How is my house not worth 40,000 more when
Right.
in 10 years my house moved 250,000?
Right. It's just not
Um,
moving at the same rate, but it is still going up, just not at the
it's
same
just
rate.
a little bit
Yeah.
small. It's like 1.5%.
Yeah.
But if you price 50,000 over comparables, you're absolutely not going to sell more than likely, and you're going to do two or three price reductions. It doesn't mean the market's going down or it's crashing. It just
It
means
started
that that
wrong.
seller was too high.
Yeah. So I just closed on a house on Friday really quick, but they bought it 2 years ago. So probably a bad time, right? They bought it
Pretty flat.
23, but area matters because where
Yes.
they bought, they paid $600,000 2 years later in a slow market, right?
Yeah.
Slow increase in price points. They closed at 675 on Friday.
See? So
So
two and a
area
half
matters.
years, 2.5 years, they moved
On
about
our area.
70,000.
Hmm.
2.5 years, they moved about 70,000, which is about probably 2 to 3%
Yeah,
per year or something like that.
probably more normal,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, they did fine. Other areas I see that they may have bought it 2 years ago and the price came down a little bit. Completely off topic, but I just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah.
They said it was a slower market,
Yeah.
um, but really not. I don't know. A little.
No, I think you're totally right. And I think that's why people need to engage someone that has the pulse of the market by looking at the data
Yeah.
to see what's going on.
Hmm. It's important to look at those neighborhood specific, right? Like in this neighborhood, we're getting offers in 10 days, which is what happened with my seller. Take a sip of water. And other areas, I might go to a listing consult and I see, especially short-term rental, we've touched on that, 90 days and they're still sitting there, not even getting an offer. You have to be really specific to the area.
Yeah,
So anyway, we can wrap up today.
that's it.
That's it for today, Mr. Cooper, Redfin, Rocket, all coming together, making things happen. Have a good week.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Bye.